Hello YouTube! We are here with Alex, who just won the second community display tournament, and you might recognize him because he also won the first community display tournament, so he's a back-to-back champion now. Congratulations, Alex! You will be awarded with that beautiful display I have right here. The community display tournaments are always free to enter, so if you want to join as well, make sure to join the Discord and be here for the next time as well. And maybe somebody can then finally defeat Alex. Alex, what deck did you use and what do you think of the deck in general currently?
Okay, so first of all, I need to correct. I play Heat Soul Control.
Okay,
It's not
okay.
perfect. I saw that wrong.
Fair
Perfect.
enough, fair enough.
The idea is basically that you make Heat Soul and pass on it. To be honest, that's the only game plan of it. So I don't see this as a Mathmech deck. However, it plays some sort of Mathmech cards, so it's pretty solid because of that.
Fair enough, fair enough.
The deck is definitely not the best. I think it's the most fun though overall because it lets you show how to use your cards properly. Like normally the other people that don't play any hand traps just like go with full engine and like you see there sometimes they mess up on that. But with this deck specifically, normally you just end on like from 3 to um, 5 to 6 disruptions overall.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, if you have 6 disruptions, this doesn't like you don't need to do much piloting to like do it correctly because you could just like throw every single card basically in disruption
For sure, for
normally.
sure.
But with free interruptions, you can like basically see a player who like knows the deck from the opponent because now they know like how to throw the hand drops correct, how not to die,
Definitely.
survive the turn, and get the most value of the cards.
Yeah, I think that's
So
when you play a lot of hand traps, it becomes very skillful actually. For example, Paulo
yeah,
Gonçalves for YCS Niagara Falls also played a bunch of hand traps, and I feel like when a good player is combined with a lot of hand traps and he knows how to use them, that will usually end up quite well.
yep.
So
Okay.
yeah, let's get into your list. Show us what you were on exactly there.
Yep. So as I said, I played Hitsu Control. I started deck by starters and extenders, sort of, and engine requirements, not like mods and spell traps, because I think that's the proper way. So we played free circular. It's a key of the deck. Like you always basically try to like see this card as much as possible to going first, and
Yes.
it makes your deck like work.
Yeah.
Free Smurret to see it as well with free silent mining. Um, Even though they're kind of like worse circular, they're still like circular, and circular by itself are like two disruptions with like the diameter and the send from the XYZs.
It was
So you definitely mix them then.
yeah, it was very funny. It looked like you drew Small World every single game we watched of you.
I mean, it's still like it's 75% to draw like one of them,
Yeah.
so it's fine. It's definitely not 100% guaranteed that you see them, but you still can play without them because I played it like sort of differently.
Sure.
So 9 circulars. I can just like I need this for a second. Then 1 Dotscaper. The idea behind that is that sometimes you need to bridge randomly with Small World, and also this is 1 card Heat Soul, so that's why it's in there. You don't need to play it, however, I like to have like 10 cards that are basically 1 Heat Soul by not requiring much, which also this card isn't Heat Soul, but it's a stronger Heat Soul because it can search you like on itself with any hand trap. It's basically Heat Soul with 1 pop. Because you play like the induction and stuff, and depends how your hand is, you can like decide on what to do with that. So I really like that. It's also starter, just like not the best one because you need to normal hand trap or like an extender out of the Mathmech part.
Yeah.
So the idea is I just show the entire thing. The entire engine is like this part, which is like 21 cards, and 19 of them are like playable, and 16 of them bring you into the game. So so basically, any of these parts, which does not, brings you into the game or like brings you into Heat Soul, even though they may not be the best starters. Like these, they're like decent extender, but not the best starters.
Yeah.
They still make you like bring into the game, and once you get into Heat Soul, you draw 2 cards. You just like try to survive the turn, and the next turn you try to get as much advantage or kill the opponent as fast as possible because it's like has no follow-up whatsoever. It's just grass cannon as well. Like you just had 1 turn to survive, and the next turn you try to kill as fast as possible, or you get a turn where you clear the entire board and they pass on nothing. You have 2 hand drops or something that they can't top take. So the idea is basically to have these 16 cards like clear opponent's board anyway,
Yeah.
and only 3 of that. I think this is a 1 fine, to be honest. I see the reasoning to play 2 because if you draw that, you can't send from circular and stuff like that. However, drawing this card is one of the reasons why I lose actually the game. Because drawing any card of these make Heat Zone.
Yeah.
This on itself, however, does not make Heat Zone because you can't normal summon hand trap special it and make Armor Rush and Splash Match because this gets banished and so you have no Cyrus monster graveyard that you can special in defense position. So this is just the worst Mathmech. However, this one also is not the best one, simply because it's the same as Sigma, it doesn't do anything on itself. However, 2 is necessary because if you draw circular by itself, you can just like add 1 by the XYZ and the second one by Cyrus Wicked, which we do always the turn 1 combo. So basically 1 circular ends on follow-up plus the trap, and any of these parts just end on Heat Zone, with maybe this one, depends. So that's 21 engine cards. I don't want to explain the math, to be honest, it's like kind of difficult.
Yeah, it's fine. But like, it's very, you only play addition, right? And no subtraction at all?
No, that's two subtraction.
Oh, okay, they look the same.
The only reason is this ratio, I mean, it doesn't matter, to be honest, which one has which. It just is overall better because going second, you can just make an opponent's monster like lose attack, and this only comes up if you have like a random monster that needs specifically more attack than the other monster. For example, if you like play against an Kid Kalos, you need a monster for 3k, you can search this and push, otherwise you won't need it, to be honest, and this is overall better.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, it doesn't matter which one you do, as long as you don't clock with both in the hand, like if you do like 2 of them or 2 of them, which you play only 1 of them.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's fine.
And
yeah,
do you think induction is a staple by now? Because at the beginning nobody was playing it, but now I think everybody, I think a lot of Mathmech lists I see are actually playing it.
That's a good question, to be honest. The only reason why, for my opinion, it's in there is because of Mystic Mine.
Yeah.
Overall, because I wouldn't enter a game 1 with no Mystic Mine out in my entire deck. So I think this one is the best solution, even though it's not the good one.
Yeah.
Because it's searchable. It makes your hands with a lot more engine. Like for example, if you draw like 2 engine cards, it makes your end board with pass with 2 traps instead of 1. Because normally, if you have like circular plus an diameter, you really don't get any other interruptions. And if you search for, if you play this one, you can search it instead of this one with the XYZ.
Yeah.
So you end on more disruption overall with more engine. Because the issue is like if you draw too many engine cards, you pass off basically nothing.
Yeah, because you want to have hand traps, of course.
Yeah, but if you play a certain amount of cards that you search with the end card more engine, then this makes your engine problem like fixed, sort of. The only issue with the deck is you have only 16 real starters, and you don't get to see that every single time, even though it's 95% chance to see 1 or 94, I think. That's something you could work on. However, the important part is that you have like a low engine count and a heavy amount of hand traps, which I'm going to show right now in a moment. So it's 21 engine cards, and then the rest of the deck is hand traps.
Let's go.
Even though I'm not a fan of kind of stuff where you play like a million amount of hand traps, I think it's kind of like necessary to like combine to play against the other decks, because the decks itself, the engines are like too strong to make you play. So you have to like prevent them from playing like play with one few cards that you draw. So I play 19 hand traps. It's weird to explain why every hand trap is at that specific ratio, but to explain a little bit like simpler, every single hand trap is basically good against everything except this. This is specifically bad against Tears, however it's good against Sprite, and I think this deck has an going second against the entire Sprite runic stuff engines. This is pretty good because like owing defeat spell, if they don't have enough runics to draw, it's pretty good. Bell, it's even good against other decks. It's specifically good against this deck, or in this deck, to have a protection from Crow. Or Called by the Grave, which can come up. And I mean, you can even small red into it, but I think that's not the right play at the moment, because most of people like decide either to play a lot of hand traps or not enough. And so like you cannot tell that by game 1 which part they are playing, like if they're playing like the tier full combo danger pile or like the other tier control variant, because sometimes they have like hands with one hand trap and you just like, cannot tell if it's like in singular imperm, for example, you just cannot tell if it's a combo variant or like the control variant. So searching for this is not correct right now, but I think it's pretty good to have it still in the game. It's only two of each of them because they're once per turn, and you sometimes have issue with clogging on hand traps
Yeah.
because these are like not once per turn. So you can draw multiple of these, however you cannot draw
Yeah.
multiple of these, so you need to play some sort of rarity to like not clog enough to hit, because you, like if you draw like 2 Ash for example, it's like fine because you can like in control matchups draw like 2 and like use
Yeah.
1
Yeah.
the under turn.
I think the
However
hand
with
traps are like are not that crazy. I think they are very understandable. I think
yeah,
one question that could come up is why didn't you run imperms? But I would assume there's a very
yeah,
simple answer to it. But give me
yeah.
your answer.
So the deck's issue is drawing cards that are like dead of the heat zone with the
Yes,
second
that's what
draw.
I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically game 1, I think it's only game 1's thing though, you definitely need to like see only hand traps without monster hand
Yeah.
traps,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
any trap hand traps or like runic cards or whatever. So I only play hand traps that are like basically drawable as second card of heat zone.
Yep. Yep. I
Which
understand.
I think is only game 1 relevant because after game 1 you can definitely decide which one like you need to draw, which one you don't need to draw. So yeah, with 19 I'm not sure of the math behind that, even though it's kind of ironic with the deck. But with 19 I think it's the best chance going second to have like a decent amount of everything,
Yeah.
and going first to not clock enough or like break enough on them.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So
I think that's the maximum you need to play going first and second. I think sometimes you can even go to like up to 21, 22-ish maybe, but that's the maximum amount you can play because otherwise you like start to break and stuff like that.
yeah. So basically,
So
you
yeah,
could probably say the same for Gamma because Gamma is also a bad card to draw with the second heat
yeah.
sword draw. And one more question: did you ever consider running Rivalry in the main deck because it's like similar to Marcus Patel and his Rika winning list? This is a deck that could
Uh,
rivalry, that could main deck Rivalry, but you decided not to.
yeah. Issue is basically sprite. Like sometimes going second you just like cannot counter them, so you definitely need to see hand trips against them. Because so against tier it's like kind of obvious, you just like set Ravelry activate and like they don't have any out to that. You don't need commit any plays, it's just they cannot kill you unless they have like very specifically.
Sure, sure.
And so with everything it's like if you have like a decent amount of variety with the hand traps, it's like fine to draw any. However, with rivalry, it's specifically you need like an specific matchup to like counter it. Like anything of that is pretty generic. However, rivalry needs to hit like the right deck, which I think is an issue. Like for example, like if you had rivalry and like an extender, for example, in this deck, like this, and you just like this the only cards that can play off rivalry is basically you just like don't get it to heat, so which is also kind of a problem in this deck.
Yeah, okay.
So I definitely would only play hand traps or like monster hand traps game 1. I think after game 1 you can definitely play traps or like spell-ish bot breaker.
Sure, sure.
It's just like for game 1 going first you definitely need things.
Okay,
I think
cool.
the only thing you can actually talk about is this. It's basically more Veilers.
Yeah, yeah. I think this
It's not
card rises in popularity. I saw it a lot.
yeah,
It's just more
yeah,
Veilers
it's
because it's good versus the Sprite matchup as well, right? It helps in
yeah,
the Sprite matchup.
yeah, it's good against everything. The only issue is like it's once per turn, which is like again kind of an issue. But however, these fix kind of it, and also like the only two go with 2 bell those also fix this issue.
Yeah, for sure.
It's 9 hand traps. It's 40 cards. It's consistent enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
You could argue that you want to play more in engine cards like Desires or stuff, but then you need to like switch up ratios because with Desires this may conflict with this one because otherwise like you need to play at least 2 with Desires.
Yeah, of course.
And I definitely don't want to play 3 because this is not on starter, which is like the issue of the deck. Yeah,
Sure.
I like the 2 though because it's an engine requirement.
Yeah, it's fine. All right, so let's go over to the extra deck, and maybe we should hurry up a little bit. Otherwise, this is going to take forever, and it's going to be too long for YouTube. But let's go to the extra.
It's basically 16 starters, 3 extenders, 2 engine requirements, and 9 trips. Main
Sure,
deck.
sure.
Make sure. So extra 3 link ones. I would place something different over that, but I come to that point. You need everything in one of them. You need this one to normal hand trap to make a seed live.
Yeah.
You need this one because there's some random scenarios where you need to link off your Mathmech, or also it can like can come up against some sort of trap matchup. Like for example, if they don't shotgun Salek, you can just like sometimes randomly go into this, and then under that you make splash match access code, so they can't really Salek you with that on the field. So that's kind of neat. Yeah. So then update jammer, wicked, the heat soul,
The heart and soul of the deck.
Yeah, heart itself deck, and the firewall. So the idea behind that is if you draw Exceed plus Circular, you can just like end on that plus Heat Soul, like that. And it's basically, it makes your engine again, it makes your engine which you draw to enough, makes into interruptions. Because otherwise, if you don't play that, it's the same thing again. You feel like you have Exceed in your hand, you can't do anything about it unless like you just like hold it if you Nibiru, and then you're going to make like Next Spider with that and like Splash, which
but that feels weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That's why I also don't want to play that, because that's only against Nibiru, and I don't think that's necessary. So that's basically the idea behind that. Is again, same issue. Like too many engine cards, you want to like make them to interruptions, and this helps. So yeah, for example, if like 4 engine cards, you just like make this for this and both trips, and then yeah. So I think this is kind of necessary, even though I don't like it. It's like good to have.
Sure.
You need this for the follow-up combo. This is like you always go for this, and this is an OTK piece, so you need it.
Sure.
Then 2 splash match. I think 2 is right, even though it sometimes doesn't come up that much. I would also, that's the only one thing I would change. I would definitely play a second access code. I just don't own one currently, the second one, so that's why it's 1. And Spider, I would definitely play 2 access code. 2 of each, because normally would go for OTK line with all of them after turn 1, so you have 1 push with the first access code, and you have another push with the second one, and after that you're basically out of resources, with exception of these 3. But you need to like sometimes make 2 random monsters this, and normally if you have like another random push, like for example Dotscape in the late game searching by Smallbird, you can go like Lingribo, Splash Match, Strength Code. I would go for the second access code, which I don't play.
I see.
And then 3 expertise. I think that's enough. You only play 2 of that if you play 2 of the revolt traps, which I don't, because it's bricks. And you play like 2 because you make 1 during the first turn combo, and you make the second one to play on the beer after the first turn combo, so 3. Yeah, space is kind of tight. I wish I could play like just the second X card without cutting Link Spider because of sometimes having specific cards, but like you just no space. So, yeah.
And what about IP? IP is completely cut as well.
The issue with IP is like, it takes too much space. That's like the issue why it's Firewall is like fine because it takes 1 slot. IP would have took 2 spots because you need IP plus an extra monster and the extra monster. So you would play like 16 cards, which again you cannot justify because you need to play 2 X code normally, but yeah.
Understood.
And then quickly for the side deck, that's the only hand trap I side going second. My sideboard, I think the main deck has like enough hand traps, you just don't need anything else. Like you have the most generic stuff ever. You just like put this and hope it's enough, and if they have it, then they have it, I guess. So 3 of that. It's just generic, that's why it's in there, otherwise it wouldn't be in there. Then I think that's sort of spicy, this one. 6 floodgates, because after game 1, as I said, it's only a game 1 issue where you cannot decide to play like traps because you cannot draw them. However, after game 1, you can basically decide which card you can take out and which you can take in. And so sometimes you just like set 3 of this, sometimes you set 4 or 5 of that, or like sometimes you just like set 4 of this. So you can like basically decide which hand traps you don't want to see, and that's why I think that's kind of good to have 3 of everything, because you can like decide the patterns.
I like DDG because it's like it doesn't lose to anything. It doesn't lose to Ash on Sanctum. It doesn't lose to so much stuff. It's really cool.
The best thing about it, like the only reason why it's in there is because it's tier elements. And
of course.
This is kind of a hard matchup already, even though like you can manage it. Like as I said in the beginning, if you understand how to use hand traps correctly and all the interruptions, then you basically don't need that. But it just makes things much more easier. Same as barrier. Like if we flip either of those, the opponent just struggles, and the only counterplay to that is reboot, so I think that's justifiable to like have decent side decks. I thought about Rivalry over D-Barrier, but it feels like the format shifts to everything that just trying to make Rogue playable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think against Rogue, this is better than Rivalry because Swordsaw is an issue sometimes, which I faced once. Then the Runic cards can also come up to an issue. So against Runics, you would even board this going second. Against pure Runics, you have to play that. Because like this pure Runic matchup is kind of difficult because Mystic Mine is like a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So.
And also, I mean, all of these cards don't lose to backrow removal. Those cards, like Cosmic and stuff, is so much
yeah,
in
but
the
I
format
think
right
you
now.
would overall not decide Cosmic against this deck or Twin either, because
You're right, yeah, I guess.
Because the only card you can really hit without like getting it chained is like the Induction, and I think this is like not worth enough unless you're playing a Mystic Mind deck. I guess that's reasonable, but otherwise it just doesn't make sense.
You're probably right.
Yeah. That's 6 floodgates, 4 hand trips, or 3 with Brick, and then the last cards are like 5 back removal. I prefer, even though that conflicts with Transcode Corker, I think this one is necessary because you can search it off Small World, and this is very, very key. Because after game 1, to have the ability to search like going second cards with an in-engine card, as a quote-unquote in-engine card, it's very, very key. So I really like this one, even though it sometimes messes up OTKs. I think that's still worth to play it. Reboot, because like any Cyber's card is basically an OTK by itself. It's not even OTK, but like it can clear up the back row itself, so that's why it's in there. This is generic, and these two these are pretty good against Runic because you can just Cosmic Defeat spell and then that's gone forever.
Then it's gone forever. Okay, so we have one more question from chat. Bagamote is asking, would you say you skip the hand trip of Laplacian versus Tearlaments so you do not trigger any effects accidentally?
That's the thing. You just don't shotgun the thing. Like, I see a lot of people that like instantly like try to, okay, there's 2 monsters, activate the trap, like you just like wait forever until they used all the effects they can use. So for example, if they start off with like a danger, you just let it go through. It starts another danger, let it go through. You let normal Sun Rhino, you let it go through as well. They make Kaleido Heart, and then you know, okay, for example, they foolish Shiren with the Reinhardt, and then they fuse with it to go to Kaleido Heart. Not Kaleido Heart, Kaleido, no, it's
Kid Kalos, you mean Kid Kalos, yeah?
Kid Kalos, yeah, Kid Kalos, yeah. So they search the mirror, which is fine. And then from there, you can decide, okay, do I want to still let them like mill 8, because it doesn't matter normally, because they only have 2 more triggers. And so you can either decide to like clear the rest of the field and negate the Kid Carlos later on to like force them the battle phase, and then you just like can't get killed, which is like the issue of the deck. And then you just let them do stuff. Like, you just don't shotgun anything mostly. You just like let them do until they get to the point, which is like they use 2 trigger effects, for example, like of the tiers. They use like the add effect, they use the grave effect or stuff. And then that's the point where you can activate the trap freely, because then it's like not a minus, because you just still make clear free cards, or like 2 dependent.
Yeah.
So the idea with the trap is you just hold it forever, and then you activate it. You just like let them trigger 2 or 3 tiers name, and then like the Reinhardt on the graph is like irrelevant.
Sure.
It's just like you need to trigger the Meru, the Sharon, and the Hafners. That's the 3 that I want to like get away with. And if they have used 2 of them, then you can activate the trap freely, because the first it's very unlikely to hit the third one of the hand. It's like, it's basically like, if they have like 4 cards in it, it's like 25% that you hit exactly that name.
Yeah.
And they also have to have it. So that's like 2 scenarios should not come up.
All right. Fair enough.
So just like use it until like mostly of the end of the turn, or like later on, just not early.
Yeah, fair enough. So thank you very much for giving insight into the Mathmech strategy, or like the Heat Soul Turbo deck as you called it. And congratulations again to your win here in the Community Display Tournament number 2. And I hope that I will see more of you in the future. I'm pretty sure you're going to be there to defend your title again for the next tournament. And that's going to be it for the deck profile. Thank you again.